It's CalifaRapNet, and today we are here with one of the legends out of the 805 area, Triple C's own Dominator. So, Dominator, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I think you can say that we were actually sleeping on doing an interview on you. So, because as we all know, you do have already quite some history in the Chicano rap game, so it was definitely about time, you know?
Yeah, we've been doing it for a while. I believe we started around, I started in, I want to say 96. It's close to 96. Yeah, 1996.
Okay, that's already a good starting point, because of course, the first question would have been, when and how did you actually start rapping?
Well, if I can take it back just a little bit, in 96, I met uh, TJ and Deluxe from Cali Lifestyle, and I was a DJ before anything, before I started rapping, before I started getting into production. So I was into doing scratching. I started learning to scratch when I was about 10 years old. I started messing with the turntable, and I was over there scratching to jam on it and stuff like that, hip hop and things like that. And when I met them, I was a DJ, and they needed some scratching on some of their stuff that they had. So they brought me into the studio, and I was not only was I a DJ, but I'm a vinyl collector. So I have a lot of stuff that's rare on vinyl. And at the time, stuff that you can find now on YouTube, it's easy to find the stuff now. I mean, but at the time when you're looking for certain songs, it's a little bit more hard to find, like Von Mason and Bounce Rock Skate and stuff like that. At that time, it was rare. Now it's played out. Everyone knows what that is now. But at that time, it was rare. So I helped provide some of the songs for that, some of the sampling for that project that they had, and some scratches for it. And after that happened, after I was DJing for a little while, I started kind of getting into to rapping and stuff like that about a year later, around in '97. I started getting into production and rapping, and of course we started from scratch, so we weren't very good. I wasn't very good at it, and with time you get better. Around that time, that's when I met Rebel. Rebel was someone that I went to high school with, and he came into the studio with a friend of ours. They both had, they wanted to rap and put a rap group together. So I was, I told him, yeah, I'll help you guys out, whatever I can do for you. We got it. I'll do some samples for you, and you guys can rap over it. So they came in and they rapped a little bit, and I don't think it quite worked out for them. The other guy wasn't really into it like Rebel was. So I told one day I was working on the song, and I was calling it Female Dogs, and I told I didn't know who else to put on it, and I had this rapper. I was doing, rapping really nasty and talking all kinds of shit, and I didn't know who else to put on it, and I called Rebel and I told him, hey, I got this song, man, and I like the way you rap. Why don't you come down and throw a 16 down on it? So he came down, he threw a 16. I thought it was dope, and I kept inviting him to the house to get on songs. Every time I would do a beat, I would be like, man, I got to get this cat on. We'll help each other out. So he kept coming, kept coming, kept coming. I told him we might as well just take these songs that we're doing and make a group out of it. And right then and there, Triple C was formed, Central Coast Click.
So that was already a pretty detailed answer, and you already mentioned, a song called "Female Dogs," which I guess was also on the first Triple C album. Here comes the Triple C. I mean, let us
Yeah.
know more about that whole album.
Well, it's funny because we were working on that. What we were doing, we were working on a bunch of cuts at the house on a 4-track tape. And what I told him was, this is what we're going to do. We're going to sit here and make all these songs on 4-track. Once we learn them, we're going to go into the studio and just nail it out. I told him I don't want to spend all kinds of fucking time writing over there at the studio or creating at the studio and spending all this money there when we could do it here at my house on the 4-track. We could do rough versions of it, memorize it, go into the studio, and knock it out. I told him there's no point of wasting all this money. It's costing way too much money because I see my homie CLS going in there and throwing down a lot of money on production and writing. You know, most of the time T would have his stuff written, but there was times where they were doing a lot of collaborating inside the studio, and I seen the bill, and it wasn't a low bill. So I told him, let's just do pre-production work, get it done, and then we'll go in there. And when we go in there, we'll just walk in and walk out. It won't be nothing. It won't be a thing. We'll already have the songs memorized. So what happened? What ended up happening was we got the songs we wanted to do, and we had them memorized, but we had all these extra songs that we weren't going to use on the album, but they were pretty good. They're pretty good songs. And they sounded all right. I mean, the quality of them wasn't the best quality, but the songs were good songs. And at the time we were signed to 805 Underworld Records, and the head president of it, Tomas, told us, why don't we just take these songs and put them out? And I told him, well, they sound kind of rusty. He goes, it'll sell. Don't worry about it. I told him, all right, well, let's press them out on CD. So we put it out on CD, and that CD ended up coming out before Here Comes a Triple C CD. It's called Underground for Life. So that's actually the first project we put out. And I mean, it wasn't even really supposed to be a project, but I think we were so excited to put something out that I said, fuck it, let's just do it, you know. So it came out, and I really wish that we could have done those songs in a studio, because they were. I mean, that album was one of our top sellers, you know. But it came out. I thought it was dope, you know. There's just a lot of, as far as equalization, there's a lot of highs and not enough kick to it, you know. I mean, I still have some of those songs now, and I have the masters for those, and I've been remixing those songs and making them sound really good. We plan on putting another album out with that album, a remixed version of it, very, very clean. So that's actually the first project, and I remember we did a song with Shadow and Little Rob, Brown Hood's on there, Prophecy's on there, Sarah S. is on that album. There's a lot of good songs on that actual album, and that, like I said, that's before Here Comes the Triple C.
I'm actually looking at the track listing of that too right now. So I would say it's probably more like a compilation, huh? Because you have tracks listed, you know, Dominator featuring, you have Kelly Lifestyle doing one track, you have Brown Hood doing one track.
Oh, you know, to be honest with you, most of our CDs, we have a lot of features on most of our CDs. We'd put a lot of the homies from the neighborhood on. We'd put them on. And put them on the stuff. So a lot of our stuff looked like compilations anyway, you know. But one thing I could tell you is I know I was involved with every single song that was on our projects. But yeah, we had Cali. That's the only project that has songs that we don't have on it. Because Brown Hood has a song by himself on there. CLS has a song. Cali Lifestyle has a song with them, and the rest of it's pretty much us. You know, so yeah, that's the very first album. There's a Aztec calendar in the front. Mario Lopez had designed the graphics for that. As a matter of fact, he designed our first 3 CD covers for us. Mario Lopez, Poltech Graphics out of San Diego. He designed the look of our what we did. You want me to get into Here Comes a Triple C? That was the second album, and like I said, we went into the studio and just pounded it out because I had a lot of the pre-production already done already. So we went in there, recorded the beats, and then just went straight to our vocals. We already knew what we were going to do. We pounded that album out fast, very fast. I think we did it. We did all the recording like in probably less than 2 weeks altogether. We did that one has Representing, The Curb, Times Are Getting Crazy, Gangsta Shit, Central Coast Click, Do You Want to Get High, Our Dedication, Average Night, Triple C Groove, Play a Congratulator, Can You Hear Me, 805 Afternoon, and Female Dogs. That's where Female Dogs ended up coming out on that album.
Okay. So, well, for me, I would say it's the second Central Coast Click, but if you already count the Underground 805 album, then of course it's actually the third Triple C album. It's called The Masterpiece. How would you describe that album?
Oh, actually, it's Underground 805. Underground for Life is the first album. Here Comes the Triple C is the second album, and the third album is Underground 805 Family. That's the third album. That album has Dangerous And I think my two favorite on there is, oh man, I got a lot of favorites on there. I like Dangerous, True, Do You Really Want Me is like a favorite. A lot of people are always asking us to perform that one. That one's with Sarah S. And yeah, those are probably my favorite ones off of that album. It's a very good album, and we're always getting requests to do songs on there. Dreamer's on there. Let's Get Down, my homie Dreamer. As a matter of fact, me and Dreamer are in the studio right now doing work. Um, but yeah, Do You Really Want Me is one that we never performed, and I think me and Sarah S. finally performed it for the first time. I want to say about 4 years ago. We performed it at a fair here in Santa Maria, and people were loving it, man, because they, like I said, they never got to see us perform that song. For some reason, I loved the song, but I just never really wanted to attempt to perform it. For some reason, I don't know why, but we finally went out there and nailed it, and the fans loved it, man. So yeah, that's the third album. The fourth album is the Masterpiece album you're talking about. That's when we departed from the 805 Underworld Records and got with these other people and with this guy Jerome Stevens and Marvin, and we formed this label called Artistic Records. And through that label, we put two albums out, and that was Masterpiece and an album called Another Way. So I'll get into Masterpiece. Well, let me talk about the first three albums that we did with 805 Underworld first. Let me tell you that most of the production on there were samples, because I wasn't really into playing keyboards. I was into it, I just didn't know how to do it. You know, I didn't know how to come up with chords and things like that. So, like I said, I was a DJ before, so what we would do is dig through crates, look through records, and listen for, you know, anything that sounded good to sample. I was a sample freak. So I sampled drums, I sampled chords, I sampled anything that I could get my hands on that I could make sound like a dope-ass hip-hop beat. I used it. So, you know, we weren't just making Chicano rap, we were making hip-hop. We were making songs that we thought were dope. And, you know, we're Chicano, so if you got to put us in that category, then go ahead. We're proud to be in that category, but what we would do was sit down and try to make good music, period. Doesn't matter if we were making reggae, if we were making hip-hop, if we were making something that sounded like oldies, we were just trying to make some dope-ass music. So, like I said, the first three albums that we worked on with 805 Underworld were mostly samples. There's a couple originals. I worked with a couple of producers and gave my input on it and hit some keys, but like I said, I really didn't know what the hell I was doing as far as playing keyboards. So when we started working on this fourth album, The Masterpiece, I got hooked up with this producer named Daryl Dawes, and he's an excellent keyboard player, actually. And what we did was worked a lot together, and while we were working, he taught me a lot of things as far as working on the keyboard, figuring out chords, figuring out how to sing harmonies that work with these chords, finding melody within your harmony, your chord structure, things like that. He taught me a lot. I learned a lot from him just working on that album. Walked away being a keyboard player, just working with him. So with this album, it's more, I mean, there's stuff that's remade on there, but we didn't sample anything. We recreated stuff for this album, actually. So it's the first album that we did a lot of original stuff and recreations instead of taking someone's music and sampling it. The track list on this album, this is one of my favorite albums, actually, The Masterpiece. Saturday, featuring Prophecy. Play As Come and Go, featuring Box. Low Riding, one of the dopest jams on here, featuring T-Dre and Kim Kaiser. She's a singer that I got to work with a few times. She's really, really dope. But yeah, we got CLS on that. I want to say T-Dre on that. And that song is just dope, period. The bass line, the drums are fat as fuck on there. And She Talks to Me With Her Body, The West Side, featuring Sarah S. We got with her and did another song together, and that song's dope too. VMF produced that one. VMF produced two on here. He produced Players Come and Go and The West Side. And the rest of them I did the production on. Me and Daryl did the production on. We Don't Give a Fuck, featuring Prophecy again. The Music, Baby Girl, is just another dope one. That one got a lot of radio play. Baby Girl featuring Michael Cooper of Confunction and Shay Love. But let me tell you, we brought Michael Cooper into my parents' house. That's where my studio was at. So Michael Cooper came into the studio out of the group Confunction, the funk group, which I was really, really honored to work with. We brought him in, and that song is the beat on that song is a remake of Tonight by, shit, I can't remember the name of the group. Sly Slick and the Wicked. There we go. It's a remake of Sly Slick and the Wicked's Tonight. It's a dope one. So we did that one, and that one got a lot of radio play, like I said. Nothing But the Best featuring Sarah S. That Sense of Mia, which is a reggae, more of a reggae vibe, featuring Cheval, another reggae group that we got to work with. All Night, the masterpiece. Throw Up, which is one that I get requested to perform a lot, but I don't really feel like I could perform that at car shows because it's pretty profound, and I'm talking a lot of shit about bitches on there and how they don't smell so well. So I couldn't see myself performing that at a fucking car show, man. So there's Throw Up, Thugs at One Time featuring Prophecy, and Times Fly, and that was the masterpiece. Great album.
All right, all right. My bad that I said that it's album number 3,
Oh no, that's cool, man.
but
A lot of people, they look at the album lists and they see it in a certain order because that's the order that they were introduced to the album. You know, some people seen it at this time, some people seen it at this time, and in their mind, they look at it as being in this order because that's when they heard of this album first, this album second, this album third, and this album fourth. So because they were introduced to the albums in that order, they think they were recorded in that order a lot of the times. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool that people have their own way of interpretation of when they were introduced to the album in their life.
okay, so you already mentioned the second album you put out with Jerome and High Rollers Entertainment. Another way, and yeah, let's go through that.
You know what's funny about this album is we had worked on a lot of stuff, and we pretty much had a vision in mind when we worked on stuff. And when we got to this album, the record company was telling us, we need something a bit more commercial. We need something that we can market and put on the radio. We want to be able to reach other audiences. And I told him, what's wrong with the stuff that we're doing now? He goes, nothing's wrong with it. We just want to be able to reach other audiences and expand your sound. And I told him, I don't want to change my I don't want to change my sound. I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. And he said, well, why don't you go into the studio and give it a try? And I told him, all right. He goes, why don't you do something a little bit more edgy? So when we done the album, we went in there with intentions to do something more edgier and commercial, but I don't know, it didn't really feel right to me. So what we ended up doing was just writing. We ended up just writing music that we ended up doing stuff that we didn't really get a chance to do on all the other albums. So this album is really different. It's all over the place. It's left and right, up and down. You know, so if you listen to it, you hear a lot of different characters on it. From my point of end, a lot of voice changes, a lot of me changing my voice a lot. I know how to change my voice and imitate things, and if I want to sound like a big man or a little man or an old man or whatever the hell I want to sound like is pretty much what I can do with my voice. You know, I've always been able to do good things like that. And this album, I did a lot of that. So I was kind of all over the place with this album, and it's a dope album, but it's very different than all the other albums that we've done. You know, so I don't know how the audience took to this album, but this is one of the last albums that we did together. And this is the last album that we did together, as a matter of fact. I'll go through the track list right now. It's the intro, and then the second song is a song we called West Side Part 2. And we worked with Don Cisco and Baby G. And actually, if I can go back and talk about Rebel really ripped the verses up on this album, actually. Rebel came with it when it came to writing. He was in the studio writing. Oh, you know what? Before I go into this album, I want to say after the second album, the Here Comes the Triple C album, that was the last time we worked in the studio. We worked in the studio for that whole album, and we never went into a studio again after that. I ended up buying equipment and learning to be an engineer myself. I went to school to be an engineer for about a year, and I already pretty much knew what I was doing already. But I just wanted to get what I didn't know how to do. I wanted to pick up at school for a little bit, so I took engineering school for a little while and kind of learned whatever machine or program that I bump into. I kind of just learn it and roll with it. So we got really tired of paying studio time and having to make appointments with the studio to work. You know, we had to work on someone else's time, and I got tired of that shit. I wanted to be recording all day and all night. I wanted to be able to wake up and record as soon as I woke up. And I couldn't do that in the studio, you know. I had to wait for the engineers to brush their teeth and wash their ass and whatever the fuck they were doing. I got tired of that shit. So I learned the craft, and from then on, we recorded at my house. And so the rest of anything after that, Here Comes the Triple C album was recorded. 805 Family till now, of what we've recorded everything in my studio. So let me go back to this playlist. Sorry about rambled off. So we got the West Side, At the Party, featuring Raylene and Prophecy. If you listen to that, it has like a really funky sound. I think I had used the drums from Bounce Rock Skate, the Von Mason. I took those drums, chopped them up, and put some live hand claps over them. And then Daryl actually worked with me on this album too. Daryl Dawes, the producer I was talking about earlier. We both contributed to this album. We have a song called Road Rage, where like I said, I go into character on that song a couple of times, and the song's basically about being in your car and having road rage, talking shit out the window to other drivers. The sixth song is At Birth, featuring Prophecy. That's a crazy song. And the seventh song is called All the Time, featuring Mary Davis and the SOS Band. Wow, that song is an amazing song. That's probably the best song on the whole album, I believe. I recently took that song and remixed it, and me and Rebel remixed it and did a version of 2014, I believe, 2013. We remixed it, and Mr. Criminal had heard the remix, and he wanted to do another remix to our remix. So we did a remix to our remix for him to put on his album, and I told, he hit me up and he says, Dom, what are you gonna do with that? I told him, I'm gonna put it out, dog. I'm just gonna let it sit there. And he said, well, man, I'd like to jump on that song. I'd like to mess with it, And I told him, well, yeah, I'd like to mess with Mami Mira. And then he said, I'll tell you what, you can mess with that, and I'll mess with this, and we'll make a little trade, So I ended up remixing Mami Mira, and then I put him on the remix for the SOS Band song. And yeah, like I said, I thought it was a pretty good trade. He ended up using both songs for his project, but yeah, I still was happy to do a song with him and Nate Dogg, with Mr. Criminal and Nate Dogg. So okay, let me see. We have a song called "I Drank Too Much." I Drank a Bit Too Much. Do You Like, featuring Baby G. Stolen Goods. The Least We Could Do. I'm On. Have You Ever? Oh, I'm On is featuring a rapper named Shaka that we worked with a long time ago. He's from Santa Barbara. He's a dope rapper, dope MC. Have You Ever? What You Gonna Do? Hitting Every Corner with T. Dre and Douglas K. Yeah, T. Dre came into the studio and blessed us with another verse for that one. That's another really, really dope song on there. It sounds more like our older stuff. I really like that one. Gangsters Don't Die, featuring Don Cisco, Daryl Dawes, Romero, and Bad Boy of Clica One. That's the first time we ever did a song with Clica One, actually, which was actually pretty dope too. Bring It On, with Crazy Boy and Baby Girl, and Take Your Life Away was the last song from that list.
All right, all right. So, I mean, as you already mentioned, the Another Way album was the last album which Triple C put out. And after that, I think, you were pretty influential on putting out the Crazy Boys' first album, Blue Rain. Let us know more about that one.
Yeah, we worked on, like I said, we were working on Another Way album, and at the same time we were working on Crazy Boys' Blue Rain album, which we were working on, but actually got released after my solo album. Um, so we were working on his album, and everyone was in the studio there. So while we were there, we said, everyone's here, we might as well just work on. We're trying to finish Crazy Boy's album, so let's all get together and nail it out. So as a team, we kind of stayed in there. We were in there day and night working on both albums at the same time, basically. Crazy Boy was coming by every single day and helping me contribute to whatever he could on the Another Way album. If you look at the Another Way album, he's on there a lot. And it's because he was always in the studio with us all the time. And basically what we would do is we would finish a session from Another Way and then get into a session with his songs. So him and his boy Casual were there almost every day, telling us whatever you need us to do, man. Whatever you need us to do for your album. They were team players. So we would work on Crazy Boys. We would have a whole day and night session working on that album and the Blue Rain album. And we nailed the Blue Rain album out. The Blue Rain album is a dope album. It's a really dope album. It's Crazy Boy's first album, and if you listen to it, it's pretty experimental, just like the Another Way album is. The beats are far out on it.
All right, and I mean, we already mentioned it. Your solo album, Love It or Hate It, also came out. I think it's actually your only solo album. Let us know more about that.
Love It or Hate It. Yeah, we put this album out in 2004. So between 2001 and 2004, that's what I was working on. I was working on Love It or Hate It. And it was the first time I ever really did anything solo. And I think what was going on was Rebel was having children. So he was a family man popping out children. And I decided to, with all the extra time that I had, just to put a track list of songs together. So I did this project by myself, and like I called a bunch of my old friends to come with me and do some songs with me. So I hit up Sarah S., Prophecy, Rebel came along too. Definitely, I was not going to leave him out of this project because I didn't want people to think that we were beefing or something. A lot of times when people put solo projects out, people are like, "Oh, they're not getting along. They're breaking up." This always happens, and I didn't want people to think that at all. So I think I got Rebel on a couple of songs on this album. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, if I'm thinking correctly, I think he's on a couple of songs. Yeah, he's on Rock the Spot, and he's on Pimp On. And it was very important for me to get him on this album because I did not want the public to think that we were having any sort of beef at all, which we were not having. Me and Rebel have never had a dry spell or beef or anything like that. We've always been like brothers, man. Music or no music, we've always been like brothers. So yeah, I started working on this album, and Daryl Dawes again was helping me on. He did about a quarter of this project, helping me with stuff on. This is actually, I want to say this is probably the last project me and Daryl worked together on anything really. And I'll go through the track list right now. We have They Don't Know with Crazy Boy and Young Creeps, which goes by Young Chitty now. And Rico. We have Rock the Spot with Don Cisco, Rebel, and Sarah S. That one's I want to say that's like a up-tempo, old-school club track with us rapping on it. We got Sarah S on there. Then we got Good Times, Bad Times with Crazy Boy and Box. And that one's like a reggae cut. And we're flipping on that one, man. So we're rapping really fast on that one. And then we got a Talk Box on the hook on there, and which is the first time I think I've ever heard Talkbox on a reggae song. Now I hear it all the time now, but around that time I wasn't hearing Talkbox on reggae songs. I thought it sounded really dope. We have Give It To Me, The 17th Floor featuring Prophecy. That one's a dope one. I think I had sampled the drums off a Blackbird song for that one. I sampled the drums on there and then laid live drums, claps and the digital drums over what was the song called? Dreaming of You, I think, by the Blackbirds. If you listen to the beginning, there's a drum pattern, and I stole that drum pattern and put my own shit over it. And number 6, Your Love Is Bomb. That's probably one of the most requested songs, period, that I get requested to perform when I do shows is Your Love Is Bomb. Everybody and their mother knows that song. And when I say their mother, I really mean their mother. There's older people, younger people. For some reason, that song just hit really, really, really hard for me. On the radio, they played it on the radio, and I don't know. I want to say that's an 805 anthem in this area. If you say Your Love Is Bomb, everyone knows that song. You know, they might not know who sang it, but everyone knows that song, Your Love Is Bomb. And it's funny, when I did that song, I had came back. I went to Bakersfield to see a Prince concert, which was one of the dopest concerts I've ever seen in my life. He had 2 stages, 2 bands, and it's funny because he would play with one band and let them take a break and play with the other band while the other band was taking a break, and then come back to the other band. Then at the end of the show, he had both bands playing, and he was doing all his old funk songs, man. And that's what really inspired me to come home and make Your Love Is Bomb. I came home because I don't know, that funky live feeling was still running through my blood like electricity. So I came home and started making the beat right away. Right away, I made the beat and sat on the beat for about a week because I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with this dope-ass beat. So about a week later, I was talking to my homie Lordside over the phone, and Lordside was listening to it. He's another artist that I did a lot of work with. Rest in peace. He died probably about a year ago. But he goes, "What are you going to do with that beat?" I told him, "I'm going to do something funky and dope with it." He goes, well, how did you come up with that? I told him I just got back from the Prince concert. He goes, "Oh, that explains it." And then he goes, "It sounds like The Time." I go, "I know it does. It does. It sounds like Get It Up or something like that, in that direction." And then he goes, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" And I go, "I'm not sure." He goes, "Let me listen to it for a second." So he listened to it over the phone. He goes, "Ah." He goes, "Do you have a melody for it already?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "What is it?" I go, "It's following what the track's doing." I go, the melody goes dun 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 dun. And he goes, "Oh, that's dope." He goes, "Well, you got any words for it?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Sing it to me again." I go, dun 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 dun. He goes, "Oh, you should say Your Love Is Bomb." He goes, "You should say Your Love Is Bomb and create around that." And I go, That's it. So he hung up the phone, and I started creating. All he told me was Your Love Is Bomb, and the rest of the song came from just him saying that. So I created everything around that. He that was like the dopest phrase he could have ever came up with for me. So he came up with that phrase. I wrote the rest of it, did harmonies, finished up the track, did the rap, and that was the rap for that. So I could give Lordside G credit for giving me that phrase. So Your Love Is Bomb. The second song is called Love You Right, featuring T. Dre and Teresa. T. Dre threw down on that for me. I really appreciate him doing that. Think of You was another one that went to the radio. I actually, you know what? I did sample something for this song. I sampled the guitar riff from Rod Stewart, from one of Rod Stewart's songs. And what I had to do was, when we went to put it on the radio, they told us, the album company told us that we had to replay the guitar. We couldn't use the sample because we were going to get in trouble for it. I was like, fuck. So we had to bring a guitar player in. And I don't know if you pay attention, but there's 2 versions of this. There's one with the live guitar with the guitar player, and then there's one with the sample. I like them both, but I lean more towards the sampled version because I really like the way that guitar sounded, man. Whoever his guitar player was got down on that. So that's featuring Don Cisco and EJ. EJ is another female singer that I work with every once in a while. I really like her vocals. She has really clean, pure vocals. Then we have Let Me Sleep, which is a crazy track featuring Crazy Boy and Teresa, again, another singer that I work with. Crazy Boy was with me a lot while I was working on this album too, so he contributed a lot to it. The song after that is "Let's Go" featuring Crazy Boy, Mackie Lokes, and Kim Kaiser. Now we finished this song and actually, you know what? We did this for Crazy Boy's album, and I wanted to use it for my album too. So we both agreed to both use it on our albums. So Pimp On featuring Rebel and Box. We got Box back for another song with us. One of a Kind featuring Capone. We had did this for his album. He had rapped over another beat, and I didn't really feel like the beat was ready to. It was going to be a lot of work to finish it up. So what I did was I just created a whole another beat, which was this beat, and then rapped on it. When I showed it to him, he's like, "Well, that's a completely different song, man. It's still your verse, bro." So we put that beat on his album, this song on his album, and then I used it on my album too. We both agreed that I could use it on my album. And let's see, Way Back Then featuring Teresa, the DL featuring Sarah S. brought her into the studio. Listen Boo featuring Little Rome, and Buzzin' featuring T-Dre and Raylene. Raylene was actually on Cali Lifestyle's first album, the Mexican Invasion album. She sang Coastin' and Sucker Free. So yeah, that's pretty much that album.
All right, all right. If I'm not mistaken, I think we covered more or less all old albums which either have the triple C stamp or Dominator stamp on it. I mean, I know it's probably a tough question, but for all the people that haven't heard the albums yet, do you know how they can still pick them up?
You can get them like on Amazon, and I mean, you can get a hold of me on my Facebook. Actually, if you go to my Facebook, Dominator, it's Dominater. I had to use the E because the idiots wouldn't let me use the O because it was a word, so I had to change my name. If you find me over there on Facebook and message me, they can buy it through me. And if you don't want to go through me, you can look on Amazon, and I believe you can buy them for a lot more money than you can get them from me. If you get them from me, I'll sell them to you for $10. If you go to Amazon, you might get them for $15-20. So try your luck.
All right, all right. So I think that was already some history, and I think before we even get into all the current stuff, and who you've been producing lately, the funk you put out lately, I think I will let you go for today, and we actually keep that for a part two of our interview. But before I
Okay.
let you go for today, is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah. One thing that I do want to say is I didn't get to mention the Brown Nation album, and it's another kind of it's like the Underground for Life album. I want to say it's kind of like a compilation we had put out, and when we were with the second label, when we were putting out the masterpiece, I had a lot of songs left over that I put on a CD, and I gave it to Tomas to put out. And he couldn't put Central Coast Click or Triple C on it, so he had to put Brown Nation, Underground for Life on it. And I don't know if a lot of people know about that album, but it's basically another Triple C album. And it has a pretty good track list on it, and I don't want to really sit and go through the whole track list on there, but I want to say that the songs we created were around the time, let me see, when we did probably the third album, the third Central Coast Click album with 805 Underworld. It was in transition between that and the Masterpiece album. Right there, we had done a lot of good amount of music that had it had samples and stuff in it, so that's why we weren't really going to put it out. I gave the master to Tomas and told him, hey, we need some money. Go ahead, put it out. So that's pretty much it with that album. You could find. It's a rare album. It's really hard to find. Good luck finding it. It's called Brown Nation, Underground for Life Part 2.